We are thrilled to have y'all this morning for how to build first aid skills for students and vaccine confidence among parents. I'm JC and I'm the operations manager for Wholespire. I have the honor of serving as Wholespire's point of contact for the South Carolina Schools Network. The mission of the South Carolina Schools Network is to identify and promote healthy eating and active living strategies in South Carolina public schools that empower key stakeholders and encourage collaboration among those seeking to improve student health and academic achievement.
And good morning. My name is Erica Ayers. I'm the school wellness consultant with DHEC, and I also serve as the executive director for the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness. The mission of the council is to serve the state by supporting the health and well-being of all South Carolinians through the advancement of physical activity. And we work towards our mission in collaboration with the schools network. An example of that collaboration is this webinar series. The purpose in the webinar series is to enhance collaboration between schools and communities using the whole school, whole community, whole child model as a framework to support student health. And the reason why this is important and why we use this framework is that it provides guidance on how schools and communities can work better together across multiple sectors. So it places the child in the center, and it takes a comprehensive approach to support their health and learning. So it's making sure that the unique needs of every student is met so that they are healthy and ready to learn. And today we're going to take a closer look at the component of health services. So before we introduce our panel, we want to get a better idea of who y'all are today. So we're going to open up our first poll. And if you would just take a few seconds to complete that, please. All right. Awesome. Over 80% of y'all have participated, which is really helpful. And about 50% of y'all are school staff or teachers. So that information is going to be really helpful for our panel for today. And now, JC, I'm going to pass it back on to you to provide a brief description of our today's session, a brief bio of our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And thank you again to our audience for joining us this morning as we learn about how schools and communities can work together to increase awareness of chronic disease and prevention while laying the foundation for good health and success in the future. Today, we'll be learning about Ronald Rouse's law and the South Carolina DHEC Back to School Immunization Toolkit. We look forward to learning about CPR and AED training for high schoolers from Rachel Faubert and creating strong vaccine confidence from Beth Poore. Rachel Faubert is the South Carolina Health Education Teacher of the Year and a SARA Teacher Cadet Instructor in Richland School District 1. Beth Poore is the Outreach and Education Coordinator in DHEC's Division of Immunization. Prior to working for DHEC, Beth served as an educator and administrator for 2 decades. We'll be starting with Rachel this morning, and before she begins, we would love to hear from y'all. Please take a minute to answer the questions that you see on your screen. The first question, in what year did the Comprehensive Health Education Act begin requiring instruction of CPR and AED use? The second question, at least one time during grades blank, each student shall receive instruction in CPR and AED use. And the third question, parents and guardians may opt out of their student from hands-on CPR instruction and AED awareness. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Thanks, everyone. And now we'll turn it over to Rachel Faubert.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name again is Rachel Faubert, and I am here to present to you information about the Ronald Rouse Law today. So a presentation overview. Today, I'm going to talk about how the Ronald Rouse Law fits into the Comprehensive Health Education Act. I will also go into detail explaining the Ronald Rouse Law requirement for schools in South Carolina. We will discuss how this fits into the South Carolina Health Education curriculum, and then I will give you information about resources about how you can teach your students CPR and AED use for free within your schools. So the Comprehensive Health Education Act actually requires that each South Carolina school district provides students with instruction on both CPR and how to use an AED defibrillator. And this happens to happen one time during the 4 years of high school, grades 9 through 12. So if you selected the answer for question number 2 for grades 9 through 12, that it is the requirement, that was the correct answer. So one time during grades 9 through 12, do students have to participate in first aid and CPR instruction? This can be done during health education or physical education courses. And school districts must begin complying with the provisions of this act no later than the 2017-2018 school year. So if you said 2017 for answer number 1, that was the correct answer. So at least one time during high school, students again should receive instruction in CPR, which is included to hands-only CPR, and we'll talk exactly about what hands-only CPR is today, as well as students having information about how to locate an AED and how to properly use an AED defibrillator. So each school district shall use a program that incorporates instruction in the psychomotor skills to perform CPR developed by the American Heart Association, the American Red Cross, or any other program that is considered to be nationally recognized. So the great thing about Ronald Rouse Law is there's not a specific curriculum that you actually need to use. You can kind of pick your own curriculum within your school districts. However, they prefer you use a curriculum from the American Heart Association, the American Red Cross, or one that has been nationally recognized. And I will provide you with free resources that meet that criteria today. And this is just a copy of the memo that came out from the South Carolina Department of Education in 2016, as well as the South Carolina legislator updating communities and school districts about the new requirement for Ronald Rouse Law that was to begin in 2017, is when it took effect. So the Ronald Rouse Law was actually named after a high school football player. He was a 320-pound football player from Hartsville, South Carolina. He went to Hartsville High School, and he passed away during a high school football game in the year of 2012. So he showed no signs of distress prior to his heart attack, and this law was named in his honor. So this is just information from the article that was talking about what happened in that particular high school football game. So he was able to actually walk off the field after the first time that he collapsed. And then he was able to speak to his father, athletic trainers, and then he collapsed again. And unfortunately, he was pronounced deceased at the hospital. So this law was actually named in his honor to teach students about the importance of knowing first aid, how to do CPR, and how to use an AED. So this is actually a letter that Yvonne Rouse, Ronald Rouse's mother, actually wrote to the media. And this was in response to the law being named in her son's honor. It says, "I am happy and proud to have Ronald Rouse's law named for my son. He would be smiling from ear to ear, and I could hear that funny laugh when he was excited about something. He loved helping others in any way that he could, and we would love to have this law save many more lives. It is required for students to receive instruction in CPR in grades 9 through 12. Thank you to everyone who made this possible and for choosing my son's name over all others who have been chosen for such an honor. My heart is filled with joy, and I'm overwhelmed with love because of this." So that letter was sent to the media after Ronald Rouse Law became a law in South Carolina. All right, so where does this fit into the South Carolina Health Education curriculum? This actually fits into injury prevention and safety. So in the unit injury prevention and safety, you typically talk about indicators that go over safety in the community, safety in the workplace, as well as you talk about information as far as first aid and CPR, as well as other information as well about things like gang violence, gun violence, weapon safety. So it kind of fits in with all of those indicators. Typically, with a traditional curriculum pacing guide, you would want to spend about 2 to 3 days on the topic of Ronald Rouse law, which is first aid and CPR instruction. And these are the actual standards. These are the 2017 South Carolina Health and Safety Education Standards, and this is where the curriculum fits in. So it fits under performance indicator IHS 1.1. So students are required to list the first aid procedures. So that would be more so like a test question item, participating in different scenarios. So saying, if an emergency happens, this is what you do, and these are the steps in order. But also in standard IHS 7.1, being able to perform first aid and other procedures for a given scenario. So giving the students a scenario, giving them access to the first aid and CPR dummies, and actually letting them practice the skills and demonstrate the skills. So it's actually 2 different indicators. One is more of a content knowledge. The other indicator is more of an actual performance-based assessment. And these are free resources that can be used for teaching CPR and AED use in your schools. I have used both of these programs within my school that I teach at with my students, and I can say they're both great programs. The great thing is they are very user-friendly, and the students seem to enjoy them thoroughly. And again, they're both free resources, and I will give you more information on how to use each. All right, so this is a program, it's called the American Heart Association, and it is called Creating Next Generation of Heart Savers through the Be the Beat Hands-Only CPR program. So Be the Beat actually provides students and teachers with tools to teach hands-only CPR, and as well as using an AED. And again, these can be used in a household as well for instruction. So learn to be the beat and perform hands-only CPR if they see a teen or adult suddenly collapse. So they go through different resources, and we can go back to this, but this is the actual website. So if you want to write this down really quickly, take a picture of it. This will give you access to the actual curriculum for free. So the website is cpr.heart.org, and then you're going to go into the training programs and specifically into the Be the Beat program. All right, and what is really cool about this is they have what they call the hands-only CPR Lifesaver Mashup. And so it is collaborating with DJ Earworm, and they play an actual catchy mix of popular songs. And you can actually play these songs within your classroom or instructing students. And these students know these songs on the playlist, and it helps the students to keep the compression of 100 to 120 beats per minute when administering CPR. So where this actually comes into play as far as this resource goes is you would have previously taught your students how to do hands-only CPR. You would have showed them video samples. You would have gone through the actual steps. This is how you perform it. Then you can use the playlist in your classroom, let your students pick what songs they would like to listen to, and then they can use it to help keep the beat while using the dummy. And I actually go around and I have like a little checklist that I use to make sure my students have proper hand formation. They're doing the 100, 120 beats per minute, and they can tell me the actual steps in order.
If you see a teen or adult suddenly collapse, it is important to act fast. Helping to save a life is easier than you might think. Just start hands-only CPR. The first step is to ask someone to call 911 and to get an AED, or call 911 yourself and put your phone on speaker mode so the operator can assist you. Then get directly over the victim. Put the heel of one hand in the center of the chest and put your other hand on top of the first. Then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. It's important to push, giving 100 to 120 compressions per minute, which is about the same tempo as the song Staying Alive, or the rate of music you're listening to right now. Let's hope you never have to use hands-only CPR, but know that CPR combined with using an AED provides the best chance of saving a life. If possible, use an AED every time you provide CPR. Again, if you see a teen or adult suddenly collapse, Don't be afraid to start hands-only CPR. Remember, call 911 and ask someone to get an AED. Then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until the AED and help arrives. Your actions can help save a life.
Okay, so how I would have used that video in my classroom is I would have taught my students about what hands-only CPR is, talking to my students about how you use your hands only. Traditionally, students, when they think about CPR, they think about, oh, you have to do the hands compressions plus the breaths, but the requirement is students only have to know about how to do hands-only CPR. And I talked to my students about the reasons why hands-only CPR is an option. And we talk about sometimes people are not comfortable doing mouth to mouth, and therefore they're a little bit hesitant on giving CPR, or they're too focused on all of the steps. So we talk about how performing hands-only CPR is technically acceptable to do. So what I do is I play these videos, and then my students are actually positioned with their dummies, and I have my students grab their cell phone, act like they're pretending to call for help, they do the whole demonstration. What would you tell the operator on 911? And then I say, okay, now that you have 911 on the phone, now what do you do next? So they show me, this is the proper hand placement that you use. This is how you do compressions. And then once I do a little skills assessment to make sure everyone is good, then I'll select one of the songs. Traditionally, I've used Staying Alive for numerous years, but now that I have access to these songs that I will share with you in a few minutes, we use more songs that are friendly to our students, more songs that they know a lot better than Staying Alive. A lot of them are unfamiliar with that song. So then I go around and we do whole class demonstration, and I can take time to individually correct them if needed.
If you see a teen or adult suddenly collapse, it is important to act fast. Helping to save a life is easier than you might think. You have been performing hands-only CPR on an adult when the AED arrives. You have the victim face up on a firm, flat surface and are ready to continue hands-only CPR with an AED. You must remove all clothes that cover the chest, as AED pads must not be placed over any clothing or jewelry. Turn the AED on and follow the prompts, which will tell you everything you need to do. Peel away the backing from the pads. Ensure there is nothing between the pad and the person's bare skin.
Plug in pads connector.
Plug the pads connector into the AED if necessary. Follow the prompts and let the AED analyze.
Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient.
And make sure that no one is touching the person. The AED will analyze the heart rhythm. If the AED tells you that a shock is not needed, resume hands-only CPR.
Shock advised. Charging. Stay clear of patient.
If the AED advises a shock, deliver a shock. Loudly state "clear" and make sure that no one is touching the person. Push the shock button.
Deliver shock now. Deliver shock now. Shock delivered.
Immediately resume hands-only CPR until help arrives or the AED prompts you to pause. You will likely need to repeat several cycles of compressions and shocks.
Begin CPR. Start with compressions.
Follow the prompts from your AED until help arrives. Again, if you see a teen or adult suddenly collapse, don't be afraid to start hands-only CPR. Remember, call 911 and ask someone to get an AED, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until the AED and help arrives. Your actions can help save a life.
So to assess my students on this portion about how to use an AED, I do not have an AED that I use with my students. So what I do is I have these little boxes that I keep and I create. And so I give them each a box and I say, we're going to act like this box is the AED. And then from there inside the box, I laminate these little slips of paper, and they're actually the steps of how to use an AED order. And then my students take the cards out of the box, little slips of paper, and I say, okay, tell me which card goes first. Then what do you do? So the students have to figure out like, okay, and remember, these are the steps in order. So then they kind of list them out with their little slips of paper. And that's cues to help them remember as well. So since I don't actually have an AED to use, I kind of make my own little fake AED and I put little cards on the inside. And then that's a way to assess the students. Do you know what are the order of the steps? So they have their dummy next to them. They call 911 just like they did before, practicing with their cell phone, but not actually calling. And then they go through and they say, okay, here's the AED. And then I have them pull out the cards and they put the steps in order. And that is more so my skill assessment for the AED. And that is just something that I created based upon the video.
When the time comes, be ready.
When every second counts. Do not give up. Push hard. Keep pushing when it's all on the line.
Be there for each other. Be ready. Call 911. Be ready.
Be ready.
Be ready.
And one thing I really enjoy about this resource, the Be Ready to Save a Life, is they give these videos that are very relevant to students' lives. So they use teenagers in the videos to model a lot of things, and it really hits home about shows the students the importance of knowing first aid and CPR. So I really like how they added and incorporated students into videos that made it very relevant for my students. So also they have different stories that you can show your students. A lot of the times I use these to kind of hook my students at the beginning of first aid and CPR instruction. We're actually beginning this next Monday in my class. So what we are going to do is I play these stories at the very beginning to kind of hook my students into why do I really need to know first aid and CPR? Why is it important? The stories are not very long, but they are very relevant. They do, reach out to the students and impact them and their personal feelings as well. And then I also teach my students about what is the Ronald Rouse law, who was Ronald Rouse, and why is this important? Why are we spending a week of instruction on this? So really hitting home about that with our students is important. So this is the actual playlist, and this is a pretty new resource that is provided. And if you look over the songs on the list, I actually project this on my smartboard and I let the students pick, okay, what songs do you want to use to practice? So we kind of make our own playlist from this playlist, and they typically pick songs that they know that they like. And then they also have a Black History Month CPR playlist as well. So that's a really cool resource to use. And then another one that they actually have is they have a curriculum with music that is in the Spanish language as well. Okay, so as far as the dummies go for your school, we were actually blessed to be provided with these dummies at my school many, many years ago and in my district, but you can actually order kits. So the American Heart Association, if you do not have dummies at your school for students to practice on, they typically provide you with about 15, I believe it's about 15 dummies, and the typical cost is about $771 around. I do not have the face coverings or like the face mask. I don't usually purchase the mannequin wipes, just because the students are only required to do the hands only. So there's different places that you can buy the actual dummies from. You could kind of shop around from them. But having the dummies, I just typically get a class set and I use them from year to year, and they've held up really well. So this is the program that we actually use in Richland County School District 1. So we started using this back in 2017, and it is called Pro Trainings. So this program actually teaches your students a bunch of different topics about first aid and CPR. And what is great with it is there is a Pro Trainings instructor. You just kind of go on, create an account for yourself, and then there's videos. It goes through the 3, like check, call, care. It goes through the 5 fears, why people are hesitant to do first aid and CPR. It goes over bleeding, concussion, shock, choking, broken bones. It goes over everything. So it takes me about 2 days for me to go through all of these video modules with my students. Some of them are about 3 minutes each. Some of them are about 5 to 7 minutes each. And I simply in my classroom give my students a study guide. It's about 63 questions. And we go through about 5 or 6 videos each day. And then we watch the video and then we stop and discuss the discussion questions. And that's where students are writing down and making notes about the steps to perform first aid procedures, as well as CPR and AED use on an adult, infant, and a child, as well as conscious and unconscious choking for adult, infant, and child. So this curriculum actually goes into more than just hands-only CPR and AED use. So once you get into the curriculum, you can see at the top, it'll say, once you go to the website at Student CPR by Pro Trainings, it will say register your school. It is completely free. And so what you can do is have someone at each school create an account, and it is 100% online program. And then you can actually practice with the mannequins as well. You would have to purchase the mannequins separately, but this is really cool program because it kind of takes the pressure off of the teacher to know how to do each first aid and CPR measure. And it has a video, which is led by a paramedic. And so the only real training associated with this on the level of who is teaching the course is a evaluator. So the teacher would actually need to take a 10 to 20 minute training class, and that will pop up once they register their school for the curriculum. And in the 10 to 20 minute training course, it teaches this teacher how to actually use the curriculum. So where are the videos? How do you play the videos? What is your student going to be required to do? And the great thing about this is teachers do not need to be certified in first aid and CPR to teach this. So it just basically teaches you how to use the curriculum. And then the actual online course time, you can either give this curriculum to your students to do independently at home and then assess their skills in person, or you can do like I do, and I spend about 2 class periods and we play all 70 minutes worth of videos together and answer the questions together. So it either can be an independent assignment, or it could be an in-class assignment where you display the videos on a board, or again, you could assign it as homework or an out-of-class assignment as well. So school registration is really what gets the ball rolling. Once you get into this website, which is studentcpr.com/learn/register school, you will create an account. It'll say, what is the name of your organization, the address of your organization as well. And then they will actually email you your username and password within 2 to 3 business days. You'll get an email from Pro Trainings, and that will let you log in to start being able to take the initial 10 to 20 minute training and know how to facilitate this with your students. So like I said, they have 2 intro videos, like Intro to Student CPR. It goes into the 5 fears of CPR rescue. There's 3 videos on medical emergencies, which are typically heart attack, shock, and stroke. Then it'll go into the importance of universal precautions. Then under cardiac arrest, it has videos for how to do CPR on an adult, infant, and child, how to use an AED on an adult, infant, and child. Then it goes into choking for conscious and unconscious, and it's separated between adult, infant, and child. And then the first aid measures at the bottom are things like shock, concussion, and I believe bleeding/broken bone. And then it's a summary at the end. So how I set that up with my students is I click on it, I play the video, we do the study guide together, and it's just a great way to get students involved. I know that they're actively participating versus if I were to give this to them as a homework assignment on their own. But either way, they will have to watch all of the videos. So one new feature that was actually added into this curriculum within the last 2 years is opioid overdose. Now this curriculum actually goes into talking to students about what to do in an opioid overdose and what is Narcan and how to actually administer that. So at that point, I had a little bit revised my study guide to go back and add in opioid overdose, but that came within the last 2 years in the curriculum.
Now let's cover one rescuer, child CPR for the healthcare provider. Our scene is safe, our gloves are on, and our rescue mask with a one-way valve is available. I'm going to call out to the child. Are you all right? Can you hear me? They don't respond. I now place one hand on their forehead as I tap on their collarbone. Are you okay? Can you hear me? The child still does not respond. It's at this time that I activate EMS, call 911, or call a code. If I have a bystander, I'll send them to go call 911 and then have them come back with an AED if they have one available. After this, I need to assess this child for normal breathing and check their carotid pulse. I check it for no more than 10 seconds. The child is not breathing and they do not have a pulse. At this time, I'm going to go right into CPR. Located between their breasts on the sternum, I'm now going to start my 30 compressions, compressing the chest 1/3 of the depth of their chest at a rate between 100 and 120 times per minute. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I'm going to grab my rescue mask, head tilt, chin lift if it's not already there, and I'm going to give 2 rescue breaths. First one goes in. Second one goes in. Back onto the 30 compressions. And I'm going to continue this 30 compressions to 2 rescue breaths until the patient revives, until the AED arrives, or until EMS or help comes in and can take over.
Okay, so that was an actual sample video from Pro Trainings, and that was one of the videos that would be within the curriculum videos. So they actually get instruction from somebody who is a trained paramedic. And again, it does a demonstration. And so I just have my students answer questions, take notes on the videos, and then we stop and discuss. And then we'll actually practice things on the dummies at the same time. So it's very user-friendly. So also they actually have a YouTube channel too. So if this is not something that you actually want to do the whole curriculum for, if you go to Pro CPR by Pro Trainings on YouTube, they actually have 599 videos, and you could actually pick and choose what videos you would like as well. So if you're not interested in doing like the whole course with your students, you have the option of just having this access to these free videos on YouTube as well. So what's really great about Ronald Rouse Law First Aid and CPR is you can actually pick and choose what curriculum you need to use. And again, your students just need to know what are the steps for using an AED and how to perform hands-only CPR. So they should be able to demonstrate both based upon the indicators.
Thank you, Rachel, for sharing this very important information with us this morning and how to implement it in the classroom, which is huge. Just so everyone knows, we will share out all of the resources that Rachel has shared in the follow-up email that will come out after this webinar. So we are very grateful for your time, Rachel. And now we are excited to turn it over to Beth. Before Beth begins, we have another poll for everyone. If you'll give me just a second to share that. We would love to hear your comfort level about talking about vaccines. So we'll give you about 20 seconds or so to answer if you feel comfortable talking about vaccines with your friends, coworkers, and family. All right, thanks everyone. And now we are glad to introduce Beth Poore.
Oh, that answer to that poll question makes me so happy, and I'm very surprised, but I also did spy several of my DHEC coworkers on here. So hopefully that's why you feel so confident. I'll be honest, talking about vaccines was not really anything that I felt confident about. It was not anything in my past work as a teacher and an instructional coach and an administrator that I really felt like needed to be discussed back then. COVID has changed all of that. And I think the passion that I had in the classroom and the passion that I had for advocating for students and working with families and making sure that we were able to get them to the right academic resources has now transferred to my work at SCDHEC with vaccines and vaccine confidence and why that's important. I do want to give a little disclaimer. This is not a presentation or a talk about changing your mind about vaccines, whether you should or shouldn't receive them. I just want to share some information about why it's important to be confident about your knowledge in vaccines and resources that we have available to support students and their families in making the best decision for them. If you can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So a few things that I hope that you will learn during this, and we do have another quick poll if you can fill that out. Are students in South Carolina required to be fully vaccinated to attend school? So yes, no, or sometimes. And we'll give you, again, I think about 20 seconds to fill that out. So are students in South Carolina required to be fully vaccinated? Oh, okay, so a good split, yes, no, or sometimes. So a little less than half of you said yes. So we'll talk about the real answer to that in just a minute. But a few objectives I want to make sure that I cover during this presentation. I hope that you will be able to understand the requirements for vaccination for school attendance, that you'll know the difference between required and routine vaccines. That you'll be able to know and identify and help other people find out where they can go to get immunizations when they need them or want them, that you'll be familiar with the resources that we have available for vaccination, and that you'll learn about vaccine confidence and why it is so important. So our school law letter. So our poll question, the second poll question was a little misleading. The school law letter is a letter that we share out annually. It does state the requirements for vaccination for school, but this has the minimum requirements for school and also childcare. So the school law letter does not just cover the kindergarten through 12th grade students, but also if a child is going to be in a traditional daycare or a home daycare, what is required for them to attend that child care center to protect themselves and others. The school law letter, I think I said, comes out annually. We post that on our website. We send it to school nurses, and it is shared far and wide through lots of social media and other traditional media pathways. The letter does highlight any changes or updates to the school law. For example, if an extra dose of hepatitis A is due, or if a new vaccine has been introduced and is required for school, that will be highlighted in that. And it also talks about the types of exemptions. So there are three different ways that students can be exempt from having to receive these required vaccines. So as my poll question indicated, there are certain vaccines that are required, but there are a few ways that students can be exempt from having to receive these. So the first one is a medical exemption. Very straightforward. This must be provided by a medical provider. So whether it's a pediatrician, an internist, an allergist, someone in the medical field who has, acknowledged that the student has an allergy to an ingredient that is contained in a certain vaccine or all vaccines. So for example, egg products. There are some vaccines that do contain egg products. So if you're allergic to eggs, we certainly would not want to require that you receive that vaccine. Also, if a student for some reason has had some type of reaction, an adverse medical reaction to a vaccine in the past, they would be able and eligible to get a medical exemption. The other one is a religious exemption. So in South Carolina, if a family or a student that's 16 or older just religiously exempts to the practice, they object to the practice of vaccination, or if there's a reason that they religiously don't want to receive an immunization, they can go to their health department. They can express that interest. At some state health departments, you do need to make an appointment. It just depends on staffing. They state the objection. They're given a form. Their name is actually entered and handwritten on that form. And the staff will just note that they received the form. And then the parent or a legal guardian can take that religious exemption form to a notary, get it notarized, and then they provide that to their school. There are certain other issues that this might bring up for them in the future, such as if there is an outbreak, that they may be exempt from attending school until the outbreak is gone. But they also, the third type of exemption in South Carolina is what we call a special exemption. So this is really used at the school level if a student, say, is new to the state, or if for some reason, this actually happened to us one year, we just forgot. We didn't realize that our 7th grader needed a Tdap. So we got a call from the school nurse, and we had 30 days from the start of school to get our child up to date. So you can have a 30-day grace period if for some reason you can't get an appointment or if you just missed and you need to catch up. But at the end of that 30 days with the special exemption at the school level, the student is required to be suspended from school until they get the required vaccine, unless they have a religious or a medical exemption. And I know a lot of this is kind of technical, so I wanted to remind you just to use your chat if you have any questions, and I'll try to catch up to those and answer at an appropriate time. So there's really two different types of vaccines in South Carolina. We have our required ones that students, as I said earlier, are required to have unless they have an exemption before enrolling in school each year or before the first 30 days of school. And those required might be, for example, kindergarten students need to receive their varicella vaccine for chickenpox. 7th graders have a Tdap booster that they're required to get. So there are certain vaccines that are required for school attendance. And then there's other vaccines that we call routine. So these are recommended vaccines. This is like your flu shot. You don't have to have a flu shot in order to attend school in South Carolina, but we certainly recommend it. It should be part of the routine and an annual vaccine. For some people, they consider the COVID shot to be a routine, but also middle school, so 11 through 13-year-olds, we recommend strongly that they get the HPV vaccine. This is not required for school attendance, but we recommend that with that adolescent battery. So another question that sometimes gets a little tricky for people is where can you go to get vaccinated? Our first preference and best practice would be to go to your medical home, whether you're an adult, a teenager, or a child of elementary age, your medical home, so your regular pediatrician, the regular physician, whether it's an internist or a family doctor. Most of those providers are going to be able to provide vaccinations for you, or they can recommend and refer you to a close nearby place to get vaccinated. If you don't have a regular medical home, or if for some reason you don't have, they don't have an appointment and your student needs to get them, certainly an urgent care has access to vaccines. But also, let's say it's a Saturday and you are doing an outdoor project and you step on a rusty nail or cut yourself and you're concerned about tetanus and you're not sure if you're up to date with that. Certainly an ER or an urgent care can help you in an emergency situation. Most pharmacies now, whether it's a Walgreens, a CVS, a Walmart, a large chain, but also many smaller rural pharmacies are now carrying vaccines, and you can simply call, make an appointment, or many of them have walk-in hours and you can get caught up to date if you need to. Many grocery stores, larger grocery chains now have a pharmacy as well. So I see quite often in my little town, when I go to Publix, they have lots and lots of advertising all over that they can take appointments for either, a simple flu or COVID, or even for a pneumococcal for pneumonia. So they have lots of different vaccines that are available. And also your local health department. If you're underinsured or you don't have insurance or you have a student that you need to refer, certainly the local health department is going to be a great resource for a place where you can go to get vaccinated. So several resources that we have, and I'm sure they'll share these slides out after the presentation. DHEC has a wonderful media library. I've included the link here. The best part I think about this media library, obviously, is the immunization resources that you can find here. But anybody in the state can go to this link and set up a free account. There's no cost for this, but you can search any of the DHEC resources. So there's probably some on there about CPR, clean air, clean water, healthy eating, nutrition, fitness, obviously immunizations, but you can search and you can actually order a multitude of resources from this DHEC media library. And if you'll go to the next slide, I have just a couple examples of things. So these are two that are really, really great, particularly for school nurses, or to have in your front office in a school or a medical office, anywhere that you really have families who are coming in to get information about their health and wellness requirements. So the sheet on the left is just for childcare. So it gives, the green sheet gives the list at the top of the vaccines that are required to be enrolled in a daycare or childcare situation. And then at the bottom, just some good hints and helpful information. The sheet on the right, the blue one, is for kindergarten through 12th grade parents of students. And so again, just a very easy readability level, short, sweet, to the point. These are the vaccines that your child must receive sometime during kindergarten to 12th grade, and then steps to make sure that they're ready to enroll in school. So whether, and again, all these resources are free. You can order 10, you can order 100, you can order 1,000, you can order as many as you need to over and over. But also there's bookmarks, there's lots of different stickers and things that you can order just to have materials on hand that you don't have to pay for to get information out about what's required. And also the DHEC information is on there. So if parents need more information or if they need help setting up an appointment at a health department, you can refer them there as well. So another resource that I'm really happy to share with you is a social media campaign that we started about a year and a half ago called Every Visit is a Vaccine Visit. So the premise of this campaign is that anytime that you go to any medical provider or contact, that someone is having a conversation with you about vaccines and vaccine confidence. So say I am expecting and I go to my OBGYN, there are certain vaccines that are recommended for women during pregnancy or for babies shortly after birth or just at birth. So hopefully someone in that office is having a conversation with the patient about the vaccines and sharing, information about that, being open to answer questions and getting the right information to the right people so they can make the best decisions for themselves. The link that I've included here, if you go to that website, it will actually take you to the page where you can request this toolkit. It's free also. So you can use this on your school website, on your personal website, on a business or a medical provider website. But it really is just a toolkit for social media. So there's daily messaging that has to do with older adults, teenagers, college students, younger children, babies, clinicians, teachers, all kinds of people, pharmacists. But we also have these graphics that can be shared because, again, we want people to know where to go. So the one on the left just simply says, all children and adults need vaccines. Ask your doctor which vaccines are right for you and your family. We want people to find what we call a trusted messenger, somebody that they know, that they trust, that they can ask questions of, get a real answer from, and that will help them make the best decision for them and their families. And then also on the right, picking up sunscreen at the pharmacy. So we just want to remind people that they're able to get vaccines at the pharmacy, even when you're running in just as quickly to go out of town to pick up sunscreen. Next slide, please. So becoming vaccine confident. Again, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm probably the least pushy person you will ever meet. But what's important to me is that you know what vaccines are, why they're important, kind of the history behind them, and that you feel comfortable and confident to be able to talk to someone else to help get them to the right resources and to answer basic questions about them. So next slide. So we know, and you know probably from your past experiences, that a strong provider or a strong recommendation from a trusted messenger such as yourself, that is the single most persuasive reason that individuals choose to get vaccinated. We have a group. So when you think about vaccines, if you think about people on a scale of 1 to 10, the people who are all the way to a 10, they're going to get every vaccine that they see on TV. Anything that the doctor recommends, they're not going to question. They don't have questions. They completely trust the science. They trust the recommendation of their provider, and they're just going to get whatever is recommended to them. The people who are on the other end, the 1, they're never going to accept vaccines. They've already made up their minds. They've gotten information. They've talked to other people that they trust, and they've just decided that vaccines are not right for them and their families, and that's okay. The people in the middle, that's what we call the movable middle. Those are the people who they might have questions. If they talk to someone that they know that they trust, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a family member, or a doctor, and they feel like they've gotten real answers to their questions and they're comfortable with the decision, they will usually opt in and decide to receive a vaccination. But research has really shown us that a presumptive recommendation is better than using a participatory approach. So instead of, if you can go to the next slide for me, if you were to take your child to the doctor and the doctor says, today your child is due for 2 vaccines, we will be giving MMR, which is measles, mumps, and rubella, and varicella. That is a presumptive approach. That is, this is what we have. This is what your child's do. This is what we're going to do today. Of course, no one's going to hold you down and force you, but it is really just assuming that the person is already accepting of the vaccines. The one in the middle, today your child should have 3 vaccines. They're designed to protect your child from meningitis, cancers caused by HPV, tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. So that's more for your middle school child. Again, that's a presumptive approach, that this is what we have. Your child is eligible age-wise to receive these 3 vaccines. This is what we have, and this is what they do. The third one, what do you think about getting shots today? Well, number one, as a parent and also as a child, nobody wants to hear the word shot. They just don't. I have one child that is 24, and even to this day, she was just telling me that she had to receive a vaccination. There had been someone at the restaurant where she works, so she had to get a hepatitis C vaccine. And I just thought, what in the world? And I said, oh my goodness. And she said, I know. I said, wait. And it's the same thing she used to do when she was 5, 15, and now 24. So when you ask things like they're a question, it's good because people are able to ask questions and get information, but it also doesn't make people feel like the person asking the question is very confident in what they're recommending. So the first 2 things of just simply stating what the child or adult is eligible for, and then what they do is much more of a presumptive approach. Next slide. Thank you. So how do you share vaccine confidence with others? I want to share another brief anecdote, if you will. So I have 2 older children that are 24 and 22. And when they were young, the vaccine for HPV and also for chickenpox, they were very new. They're not required for school. And so when I took them to the doctor, particularly my oldest, very hesitant to receive a shot child, the doctor, our conversation went like this. Do you want her to get the HPV vaccine today? And I said, what is that? Is that the one about sexually transmitted diseases? She's 11. Why are we talking about this? And he said, okay. And then I said, did your children get it? And he said, no, not yet. That was our whole conversation. So you can probably guess that my decision was no, not yet. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, but at 24, she has still not received that vaccine, even though the HPV vaccine has been around for a long time. My conversation now with my 9-year-old is very different. So when she's of age and I take her to the doctor and he says, do you want her to receive the HPV vaccine today? Because it's been around, because I trust the science, and because I know many trusted messengers, of course, she'll receive that vaccine. But the difference in the conversations with a trusted messenger or a provider that you know well, that you trust, that recommendation and the positive recommendation, just like from a school nurse, can make all the difference. So when you're thinking about sharing vaccine confidence with others, you want to make sure that you are coming from these 4 different stances. So collaboration, it's a shared decision. You don't want to be bossy, or I wouldn't encourage you to be bossy. You want to make sure that you're helping provide information in a way that's going to work and collaborate with the patient or with the student or their parent that you're working with. You also want to make sure that you're coming from a place of acceptance, that no matter what the decision is, you're not going to be angry if they don't receive a vaccine that day, and you're not going to be overly jubilant if they do, that you're going to accept their decision no matter what. You also want to come from a place of evocation. You want to evoke the feeling in them of trust and that you have shared decision making. And then you also want to come from a stance of compassion so that you understand and you sympathize and you have compassion for whichever decision, because at times these decisions are very difficult for families to make. Next slide. So with collaboration, the strategy that I really want to discuss with you is called motivational interviewing. So it's really just a fancy way of saying that you're going to have a safe, supportive conversation with someone who's making this decision. This motivational interviewing does not just have to work with vaccines and vaccine confidence, but it really can work for any issue in public health or any health issue that you might be facing at your school or in your nursing office. So motivational interviewing with collaboration, that we want to emphasize that we're collaborating, that we're working together rather than confronting. So for example, a family comes in and they have a religious exemption. Instead of saying, why do you have this religious exemption? Don't you know that this is not protecting yourself or others? That you want to collaborate and work with them. Maybe ask, why did the family choose to receive a religious exemption? Are there any questions that I can answer for you about vaccines and their safety and their efficacy? It's also about creating a shared partnership that you, as the provider or as the trusted messenger, and the patient or the family that you're working with, that you're working together to help make the best decision for them. You really, really want to build rapport, and teachers are fantastic at this because you know your students, you know their families. Many times you can probably guess the questions that they're going to have before they even ask them. And then also just facilitating that trusted relationship. Again, that you're not confronting, you want to work with the family to make the best decision for them, whether you're out in the field at a community event, that you're at church on a committee and someone's asking questions, or even just sitting around the dinner table. Sometimes the dinner conversation with my family and extended family gets quite interesting, especially around the topic of vaccines, but that you have a trusted relationship that's mutually respectful of each other. With the spirit of acceptance with this tool and having, again, the safe, supportive conversation, you really want to recognize that every individual has worth and that they're all valuable. So not belittling, not making smart, snide comments, just accepting people where they are, no matter what their viewpoint might be. Having that unconditional positive regard. So even if you have a family that comes in and says, vaccines are not for me, they're, they cause this, that, the other, lots and lots of things that you've seen or that people have, seen on the news or on the internet or on YouTube. Those are my favorites. That you have this unconditional positive thought for them. This is something that, again, teachers are naturals at, and the rest of us could really take a lesson from that. Be empathetic. Try to understand where the other person might possibly be coming from. We all know, we have families who watch this news station or that news station. You know this about people, so try to understand, where are these questions? Where might this fear and hesitancy be coming from? And then make sure that you affirm them, that even if they were willing to have the conversation with you, just that you affirm them, that you accepted that and say, I really appreciate that you took the time to talk with me today. I know this was a hard conversation. I would love to talk with you about this some other time. Evocation. So that is really drawing out, what are the values, the goals, what is the reason for the change? I'm going to be very honest with this part. With COVID did gave people a lot of questions. And, my parents and my grandparents and older friends would talk about how, in the good old days when polio was out and there was a vaccine, the government just came to your door and you just took the shot and you lined up at school and everybody did their part. And that's great, because that was definitely something that needed to happen. But that was during a different time. So with news and with skepticism and all kinds of things that are out, and mistrust and distrust with the government or scientists or whatever, with new technology, people have questions. And so really trying to draw out from people, like, where did this come from? Did you receive vaccines when you were younger? Do you trust the measles shot? So where is this mistrust? Where is this change in thinking coming from? But again, accepting that and being able to collaborate and work with them. Really, the patient should be the one who determines their own motivation and resources. If they don't want to receive a COVID shot, or if, RSV is a new vaccine that's out for older adults. So if an older adult is not ready because they've never heard of the RSV shot before, really empowering the patient to be the one to make that decision instead of them becoming fearful, or them feeling like they are, being pushed and rushed into a decision. The patient, really, you want them to talk themselves into change, that you want to help them make that decision. But them being curious and having patience are really, really important. So really trying to draw out, if you were going to receive this vaccine, what would need to happen before you could do that? And then again, making sure that you have some other resources, and that other places that are good, solid resources that you can refer people. So if they don't believe you, if they don't trust you, that you've got some other places that maybe they could read up and learn a little bit more on their own. And that leads us to finally the compassion part. Having that conversation through motivational interviewing, it should be judgment free. Not you're a Republican, so you think this, or you're a Democrat, so you think that, or you're, older, or you're younger, or you're male, you're female, but really a judgment free zone, that this is the decision that I've made for myself and for my family. I respect your decision, and I would like for you to respect mine as well. Shame doesn't work in this case. Oftentimes with people who are very hesitant for anything in public health, especially vaccines, we find that it comes from a place of shame and fear. So we don't want this to be a shameful conversation. We don't want people to feel bad that they didn't make the same decision that you did, but just that they, again, feel safe and supported throughout the conversation. You really want to prioritize the patient's needs. If I say things like, well, you didn't get this shot and now I'm not protected, the person who was hesitant in the first place, I don't think they appreciate that very much. We saw that in particular with COVID. Many families that I've talked to, and people in my own family, they tried to make, other people feel bad for whichever decision. If they were hesitant, they tried to make the people who did receive the COVID vaccine feel bad about their decision. And if they did get it, then they tried to make the other people feel bad because they didn't. And, so making sure that the person that you're talking to knows that their needs are important and that you want them to put those needs first is usually a better way to approach this situation. It also is going to require that you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Sometimes seeing things from different perspectives and looking at things from a different point of view is very difficult. But oftentimes, if we can take a few minutes to do that and make sure that the person knows that you're trying to put yourself in their shoes, then it really makes a bigger difference to them. And they know that you have that compassionate heart, and they know that really you're having this conversation with the best intentions. So some sample language, some things that you might want to say or, ask with regard to collaboration, that we're going to work together to make this decision. I want to be here for you. I want to support you, and I want to make sure that you're able to make the decision, but I'm here to help you if needed. A statement with acceptance. I value you, and I'm delighted. I'm happy to talk with you about vaccines and immunizations in general. Something with evocation. I'm going to create a space for you to share yourself and your story with me. I want to know why you believe what you believe, and I would love to be able to share my story with you as well. And then compassion. I want to understand and respect your unique experience, particularly with people who have cultures that are different than our own. Being compassionate and just, bringing things up and saying, I want to understand why you think what you think and why you believe what you believe. And I respect that, even though it might be different than myself. It's usually a much better way to support someone. So if we can try to keep these ideas of collaboration, acceptance, really evoking a thought and creating space for people, and then doing this in a compassionate way, it's a much better way to have a safe, supportive conversation with someone about vaccines. So a few helpful points for you. Just know what the requirements are. particularly as parents. I think they said in my introduction, I've been a teacher, I've been an instructional coach, and I was a school administrator. And even as a mom, I didn't always know what was required and when. So trying to be, to know what's coming up. So if you work in a school, making sure that your 6th grade parents know that spring semester that there are changes for 7th grade, that there are certain vaccines that students need to have, letting them know ahead of time. So whether it's a work requirement or even just for your own personal health, know what the requirements are, know how often you need to have a Tdap shot or when you need to receive certain boosters, whether they're annual or whether they're every 10 years. Know where to go and where to get caught up. So knowing where you can go to get, I told y'all earlier when my son was in 7th grade and we found ourselves scrambling, trying to figure out where to get a Tdap shot. We had no idea. The doctor's office was booked up. The health department didn't have any. And we literally spent half a day on the phone trying to find a pharmacy with stock. So knowing ahead of time where you can go to get caught up or to be ahead on your immunizations is really important. Be prepared and be available to support less confident people, not in that judgy, fussy way, but, just knowing what you believe and why, and being able to share with them why you've made the decision to get vaccinated sometimes can make all the difference. Obviously, my close friends and family know that I work with the Division of Immunization, so they do come to me with questions, and I don't always know where to go to get the answers, but I know how to get to the CDC. I know knowledgeable others that know things much better than I do about specifics and detailed questions, but being prepared to at least have that conversation is really, really important. Be open and supportive. If people bring up the conversation or if it's someone that you want to talk to about it, being open to them and supporting whatever decision they make is really super important. And then again, offering to continue the conversation. If you have someone who is really against any vaccination or just they don't want to get the flu shot because they got sick the last time they got it, just be open and offer to continue it later. If someone starts to get upset, using simple language like, I'm really sorry, I feel like maybe I've upset you, I would love to continue this conversation later. Or if you get to a good stopping point and they haven't quite made the same decision or made the decision to receive vaccines yet, no matter what they are, just saying, you know what, I really appreciate that you took the time to talk to me about this. If it's okay with you, I would love to talk about this again sometime. Those things take practice and they're not always easy. But again, teachers and people who work in public health are kind of naturals with this. And that is the end of what I have to share with you all. If you have any questions about vaccine hesitancy or any type of vaccine, or if you need help getting to certain resources, please feel free to contact me. My email is in here, and I'm sure that they will share this at the end. But I'm very happy to answer any questions that anybody might have for me.
Thank you, Beth. I know personally I'm feeling much more comfortable with having these potentially difficult conversations after listening to your presentation. With our final few minutes, we would love to answer any questions that we have from our audience. I have not seen any in the chat or Q&A. McLean, have you come across any questions at this point?
No, there haven't been any.
Okay, well, if anyone thinks of any questions, you are welcome to email us and we will answer them outside of this webinar.